Well, we're live, Burke. We're live.
Awesome. Good to be here.
So, uh, I don't know how you wrote me into this, but you said, Dean, we're going to come on and talk about growing a business that runs itself. And you, you've obviously helped people do this. I've just done it and learned the hard way. Um,
Well, I think that's where this came from, is we were having that conversation. So
yeah,
it's a very common conversation that so many people, or a common deal issue that so many people are dealing with right now
mhm,
that are in small and growing businesses, because a lot of times they're really good at what they do. That's why they go into business for themselves, and they're good at the technical part of that business. What they're not necessarily good at is figuring out ways that they don't have to do everything every single day. So that's what you and I were talking about. That yes, I
yeah,
convinced you that we needed to have this conversation.
yeah. So, Burke, I guess from my point of view, how do you want to handle this? Because people are joining because they probably had the problem that I had, where the business was great, and the business is your baby and all that kind of stuff. But my business was 7 years old and still needed daddy to look after it. And if daddy went on holiday, um, it was, well, I don't know whether I told you about this, but when I went on holiday, I had a suitcase with my stuff in, and then a suitcase with my mobile office in. And I did that for like 7 years.
Right. I think that's a lot of people will share that. They may not have a whole suitcase of things, but they definitely have their phone and their laptop. I mean, thank goodness we've gotten to the days now where those are small enough that you can carry with us. I guess thank goodness. But uh, this all really came to a head to me as far as something that needed to be talked about and needed to be dealt with. It was about a decade ago now or so. I had one of my clients that I was with. We were on a fishing trip in Costa Rica, and we'd been there for a couple of days, had had some fun, had caught some fish, and it was about 11 o'clock on Monday after or Monday morning, and we decided we were going to go get some lunch. We were in a house up on the top of a mountain, effectively. On the Pacific side of Costa Rica, beautiful house overlooking the ocean, but you've got to go down the mountain to get to where the restaurants are and those type of things. So we decided to go. We jumped in our golf cart and started to go down the mountain. Uh, this golf cart was actually custom designed for my client. He had built it down there because he goes down there quite a bit, and it had Tesla brakes at the time. I believe they were Tesla brakes built into that recharge the batteries as you use the brakes. So as we started heading down the mountain, I remember we stopped actually just after a little bit, and he looked at me and said, "The brakes just don't feel right." I said, "Okay, well, let's, test them. What are you doing?" No, I guess it's fine. I guess it's fine. So we started on down a little bit further. And within probably 30 seconds after that, one of the last things I remember was him looking at me and saying, "We don't have any effing brakes." And I'm looking at him going, "Oh my God." And I remember the last thing I remember thinking was that my 300 pounds was not making us go any slower, and I probably needed to jump out. So there was a couple of curves coming up. There's a cliff literally on one side of the road that is, a 200-foot drop, and then trees on the other side of the road. So there was really nowhere to go as I apparently jumped out. And I thought it was going to be, in those action movies, you see the guys jump out of the car and they kind of roll and then they stand up and look around and go, "Oh my gosh, okay," and dust off a little dirt. It doesn't work that way on asphalt, apparently, or just not for me. Apparently, what happened to me is I just jumped out and hit feet first and then slammed into the asphalt. So it was bad. He then another 50 yards or so down crashed a little bit later as it rolled over. The golf cart rolled over once he got to the curve. We were doing somewhere about 50 or 60 miles an hour. We finally figured out when I jumped out. So at that time, what happened was I had a massive gash in my head. I had brain swelling. I had broken my collarbone, all of my ribs on my left side, a bunch of different things, and got to go to a trip to a third world country hospital. That was
Wow.
exciting, ambulance ride for 3 hours strapped to a board. It took about five of them to strap me down because I was fighting them apparently, because I had no idea where I was. I didn't know who these people were, and I kept trying to get up, kept trying to get away, and they kept fighting me to get me strapped down. Um, my friend was just as badly, if not worse. He broke both of his ankles and broke his other collarbone from me, and several other issues that he had. So we both end up in the hospital. He is the actually the manager for a very large electrical contractor. He runs the entire city of Dallas, actually, for this contractor. So he's got a lot of people that work for him and depend on him. And I can
Wow.
tell you, he's one of the best there is. And the problem was he was so good at his job that he did a lot of things himself. He worked 7 days a week. This was his hobby. This was his baby, just like what you're talking about. And the good news was he and I had started working about a year earlier before this happened. We'd started working together and we'd started developing some of his people. We'd started developing some of the folks around him to take some of these pressures off of him, to take some of these responsibilities off of him so that he could actually go on more of these trips, funny enough. Well, as both of us laid there in the hospital, my concussion was bad enough, and the story gets way longer, but my concussion was bad enough that they wouldn't let me look at a phone, they wouldn't let me look at a TV, they wouldn't let me read a book. I was told for a
Right.
month when I finally got home that I was to sit in a dark room and not do anything. I was dizzy every time I tried to get up. I was dizzy every time I tried to look at anything. It was awful. So I couldn't work. As a consultant, the good and the bad news is that no one else was really depending on me except for my clients. And thank goodness most of my clients loved me enough that they paid me anyway that month when I couldn't work, because they were, worried about me and those things. So thank goodness for relationships. But my friend, his was a whole different. He had to be in a rehab hospital for 4 months, so he literally
Jeez.
couldn't go to the office because he was in a wheelchair part of the time. He was doing heavy rehab. It was a bad situation. They would come up to the office and try and talk to us and work on a computer a little bit, whatever, but completely different from the man who was in his office from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 or 7 at night every single day. So
It's-
as as we looked back on it after, I mean, at the first, of course, it was scary, it was awful, it was so many things. But looking back on it later, what we talked about was, what if we hadn't done all that work ahead of time to start setting those things
mm,
up, that where some of those people could take over? What would happen if this was a year earlier and we hadn't done that? And it was catastrophic as it was, but it would have been catastrophic to the business, not just him, if we
mm,
hadn't done all that work. So the good news was, yes, he lost a little bit in the business. As far as, I think we started calculating, I think he lost maybe a point of margin at most, which
mm.
you could probably look at a couple different factors for that, but we decided that probably was there because he wasn't there to make that instant decision when he needed to. He wasn't there to take care of maybe that customer issue when he needed him to be. However, what we gained was a team that after those 3 months, when he came back, he could leave for a week and there was barely a phone call because they had to step up. They actually saw the benefits of actually learning what decisions they could make and those type of things. So that story really caused me to push down this path a lot, because I think there are so many of us that all think we're in control. We all think that, we're bulletproof. It's never going to happen to us, whatever. And then it does. You're careening down a mountain at 60 miles an hour and you jump out.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen to me, but
Let's not.
you're
Yes.
you're right. You're right. Um, I didn't intentionally think about, do you know what? I'm going to build my business where I am the linchpin to this whole thing working. I
Right.
never planned that. I didn't go, oh, I'm going to do this. But at the same time, as I look back, I noticed that there were places where I'd go, I'll just do that. And when I needed help, I hired people to come and assist me. I didn't really hire people to come and take responsibility away from me.
Hmm.
Um, so I would have these weird arguments with myself, like, why do this team? Why am I picking up all the slack for this team? like I was angry, but then when I look back on my own behavior and the way I was running the business, I was basically creating a situation I didn't like. And I'm like, why am I doing that? Why did I do this? But the worst bit was for me, and maybe you'll come to this, was I'd created a way of working that I didn't want, but changing it meant it was very, very difficult because I'd not just got used to my way of working, I'd got everybody else used to my way of working.
Absolutely. You trained your team to depend on you. So a lot of people, when it comes to decision making and things like that, what happens is your team gets used to, in this case, Dean making the decision. And the safest play is to let Dean make the decision because I can never be wrong if he's always making the decision. And it creates an environment then where it's not that you purposely are telling people, oh, I don't trust you to make a decision, but subconsciously that's exactly what you're doing is
Mhm,
creating that so where they feel like, well, it's safer to let him do it because Dean's always right. Dean's got the cape on all the time. I love to tell the story, or just to give them the example that you've got to take the cape off every once in a while. When you're a new
mhm,
business, yes, you do everything. You have to wear the cape because you're the accounting department, you're the business development department. Unless you're really lucky and somebody gives you a ton of money, I guess, you are the one that's doing all those things. You're trying to develop your own website, you're trying to do your own LinkedIn, you're trying to do all these different things yourself because you have no money and you have a lot
mhm,
of time at that time because you have no customers
mhm,
generally in a startup for sure, or you have one. That's what most people start with, is that one that says, hey, why don't you go off on your own and I'll be your first customer, right? And so that works at that time. The problem is if there's no plan to slowly strip those things away, you're continuing to try and do that as you're getting bigger. And even as you said, as you hire people, they come in to assist to a degree, but none of them are really taking a load off. All they're taking off is some of the little technical stuff.
mhm,
You are still the one that's having to control and approve everything because a lot of times, as it's happening, you don't realize it because you're in the middle of a fight. You can't see anything except for the battle that's right in front of you, much less the entire battlefield.
mhm,
So that's where having some people help you with that can actually see it and go, well, why are you doing that? What's causing you to want to control this piece? What's causing you to need that to be still in your wheelhouse? Why are you taking this phone call? I talk to guys all the time that get 500 emails a day. And in construction, sometimes what that means is I had a guy that, for instance, every single red tag, and he ran a business that did uh, 2,000 homes a year. Every single red tag, if they had one, was going through his email. Or actually, and so a red tag in this case is just a denial from the inspection authority.
mhm.
So you get those every day. You probably get a couple of them every day in reality. So, but what is he going to do with it? He's not the one that needs to fix that, but it's coming up in his email. So it's causing him to have to look at his email. Hey, there's a red tag on 123 Jones Street. Why is that? I don't know. So then he's calling somebody when they're already taking care of it in the ideal world. They should know when they get a red tag what they're supposed to do. It's not a question
Yeah.
generally. It's not like a customer request that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So even going through and trying to figure out how you can set up responsibilities with dollar amounts attached to them sometimes can help. Hey, if this is $100 decision, don't call me. Just don't. You make the decision. We'll talk about it later if you were right or wrong, and then we'll figure it out. And I'll back you up. But you've got to do something to get some of this off you because what I also what is sad to me is not only the danger of somebody having an accident or God forbid or something like what happened to me, but a lot of these business owners aren't even allowed to enjoy the business they've created. They can't enjoy the life that they should be able to. They
Mhm,
went into business for themselves when they started. I guarantee you because they thought they were going to make more money. It's what everybody thinks. Oh, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to make all this money. But then they're making money, but then they can't do anything with it. They
mhm,
can't take trips. They don't have the freedom to have dinner with their family barely without a phone stuck to their ear or sitting in front of them on the table.
mhm.
And wasn't that the whole reason you wanted to go into business? Was to be able to do those things, right? To
Yeah.
enjoy life a bit, as well as enjoy the process of doing the business. They loved it more than likely when they were an air conditioning, supervisor or whatever, and they loved the air conditioning business. They loved going in and checking things and dealing with homeowners and some of those types of things sometimes. What they're not liking now is probably a lot of the technical side of the business piece where they've got to figure out financials and they got to worry about banking and they got to worry about payroll and they got to manage egos, all those types of things that now have factored in. So getting help with some of those things can take some of that pressure off.
And it's funny because I don't know whether you know the story of, obviously, I come out to the US. I was with you in um, Houston last week, but
Mm-hmm.
where are we? 14 years ago, I started my business. But before that, I got to travel the world for a media organization. So not construction industry, a bit different, but
Mm-hmm.
weirdly on a construction project. We were building a building, but that's another story. And I love travel, absolutely love travel. Started my business, and I'm very fond of Miami and Miami Beach.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful
And
place.
the last time I went to Miami Beach was 2014, just before my business really started to fly. And I said to myself, one day when my business is doing really well, I'll go out
Mm-hmm.
to Miami a couple of times a year.
Right.
And around 2022, 2023, I reached a point where I was like, when is this actually going to happen? Because all I see is we get bigger, we get more people, and I'm chained to this thing more than ever.
Right.
So
Right.
that was the big thing for me. It's like I'm not I'm 44 now, and I'm like, hang on, I've just done this for like, well, at that point maybe 2022, so 10 years or so. I've done this for 10 years and I'm chained to this thing. And that was the moment when I realized this is not going to change unless I make it happen. This is not going
Right.
to somehow crazily evolve and, oh, Dean, you're no longer needed. But for
Right.
some reason, I actually thought that that's what was going to happen. Magically, somehow, some way, sometime, I would be redundant from. And I mean, I'm still heavily involved in the business, and I'm still,
Of course.
but I've just been in the US for 2 weeks.
And it's a moving finish line is what happens. A business owner typically will get started, and just like you, they'll say, "Oh, in 5 years I'm going to do this, in 6 years I'm going to do this." But when they get there, the finish line moves again because there's something that's not quite right. And what a lot of times it has to do with is they don't have a plan.
Mm,
So they haven't started where they're saying, okay, what do I want to do? So for your example, I want to be able to go to Miami. I want to be able to travel, and let's say I want to be able to do a week a month. Again, my friend earlier in the Costa Rica example, he's exactly the same. He wants to be able to take a week a month to travel. Okay, so if we're going to do that week a month, there's several factors in there. Can we be flexible about which week it is during the month? Because if it's in the middle of the month, for instance, for some people, there's not as much happening versus the end of the month for some people is awful because that's where all of the decisions have to be made. That's where all the reports and everything else has to happen. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, okay, if you're going to be gone for a week, what's going to happen when you're gone? So one of the questions I love to ask business owners is, okay, so especially like if we go to a lunch, I watch their phone. I love to watch their phone and just see how many times it lights up and see how many times they go, oh, no, no, it's good, it's good. Because I always say, hey, if it's business, you need to answer it. Go ahead. If it's important, you need to answer it. And sometimes they do. Uh, but in reality, I mean, there was a time before phones. All of us seem to be able to get business done. Actually,
mm,
there. What is that important that you're going to have to solve in that moment? We've become such a society of immediacy. Everything has to happen right now. And so what they've been looped into then is they're trapped because they don't know how to get out of that. And again, a lot of that has to do with having a plan. So if what you want is freedom, then let's start with lunch. Can you put that phone down for an hour? Now, what I want to see is if you put it down for an hour, what breaks during that hour? Who's pissed? Who's mad? Who's saying you're not answering? Now let's go talk to that person and figure out why they couldn't make a decision or who should have made the decision in that case. So it starts to expose some of the issues. The next step is, okay, let's try it for a Saturday. Turn your phone off for a Saturday and let's see what happens. And I mean, it's like taking a pacifier from people. These phones have become so dependent and such a part of their world that they take their phone and they clutch it like this. No, 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 no. You can't take my phone for a Saturday. Why? If you want freedom, this is how you get there. And so again, they're in the battle, so they can't see that that is part of what is causing these issues. So as we work through it, we get up to, again, it's an hour, then it's a few hours, and then one of my clients I've got as a builder in Illinois. I got him to where he took an entire 2 week vacation to Europe. It had been a dream of he and his wife to do forever, and he just could never. I mean, he couldn't take much less of 2 weeks. He couldn't take 2 days off, and
Mm.
he did it. And I remember when he came back, he called me and he goes, "That was the most amazing trip ever." I said, "Really? Well, what made it so amazing?" I enjoyed it the whole time. I didn't. I mean, because what we did was because he couldn't put it away completely. I said, all right, how about 1 hour a day? You schedule yourself because the time zones. 1 hour when it's whatever. I think we figured out when it was 10 o'clock here, it was the afternoon there before dinner. You take that hour, you get on your phone, you make a phone call or two, whatever you need to do, but then you put it away. And just like in the much better example than my friend that got hurt in the accident, obviously, but his team stepped up and
Mm.
I kept telling him, I was like, okay, so do you either not believe in your people or have bad people? Which one is it? Well, no, I have good people. Okay, so you don't believe in them. Is that what you're saying? Well, no, I believe in them. Well, it's got to be one because you're not letting them run. You're not letting them out
Mm.
of the gates, man. You got to let them perform. And if they're
I,
bad people or not the best people, then fine, we need to find new ones.
and that was hard for me when I went through that, because my perception was I had to pick up the pieces all the time.
Hmm.
My perception
Yep.
is I had to solve all the problems.
Right.
So on the face of it, me going, no, I have to let them step up. I'm also thinking this will be chaos. This will be a disaster. And
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 for,
that that's possible.
for me though, I got to a point of going, how is it we get more and more people and it doesn't get any easier? Doesn't ease up at all. We hire because we're stretched too thin, and somehow I'm still struggling
Right.
to do all of this. And
So I had a client in Austin, Texas, call me several years back. This is my absolute favorite coaching story for anyone who ever wants to know why they want to coach, a business coach. And he calls me and he says, "Hey, Burke, I got a problem. I don't know what to do." And I jump right into I got my cape on and I jump right in there. I'm like, "Really? You don't know what to do? Okay, what are you working on? What's going on? What's the problem?" He goes, No, no, no. I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Okay, what are we working on? What are you talking about? What do you need to do? What are we trying to accomplish? What's the goal?" "No, I just don't know what to do." I'm like, "Okay, tell me. You need to give me more information here, buddy." He goes, "No, you don't understand. Everybody's doing everything. I have nothing to do. I'm sitting here and feel useless because everybody else is doing something and I have nothing to do." Oh,
uh,
what a unique feeling, right? For
yeah.
most business owners, that was for him for sure. It was a light bulb moment, but it was not the what light bulb he thought it would be because it was uncomfortable. Well, wait a minute. Do I have value here anymore? Do they
Mhm.
don't need me? Oh, well, this is what you wanted, right? Now, the rest of that conversation was okay. If you've gotten to that point, let's move on to some other things. What else are we trying to do? What other things do we want to accomplish? Now we've freed your brain up from the daily grind that you're dealing with so that we can actually think about, hey, what about expansion? Hey, what about other things? Hey, what about spending time with my family or things like that? So it was such a great example. And it was just so funny because it took me at least 3 times of him saying, I don't know what to do to finally figure out what he was talking about.
And I get 100% where you're coming from there with that, because like if you've done it for a long time, and I did do it for a long time, it feels wrong.
Hmm.
You get used to this frenetic, almost like always on call. Even when you try and take a day off, you're probably catching up on stuff. I know I used to
Right.
do that on a we've got a public holiday this weekend, and I used to look forward to them because the office would be closed and I could catch up.
Absolutely. I talk to guys all the time that come in at 4:30 in the morning because nobody bothers me. Or they do it at the dinner table at night after dinner or with their family because nobody bugs me. It's the only time I can get things done. Well, that's a problem.
Mm.
Uh, then we need to figure out some different things in your business that if everything is important, nothing is. So at some point, again, by choice is one thing. If you say I want to take a vacation or whatever, that's great. But what happens again in my story earlier if it's not by choice? As much as all of us think we're in control, one, God forbid, one little car wreck or whatever, and you might be out of commission for a little while. Just getting sick, not being able to recover from a cold because you have to go into the office, you have to control things.
Mhm.
So that unwillingness to let go of some of those things is where the problem comes from. So it's self-created. And that's you can't let go of it all at the beginning, which is people think it's a light switch, right? It's either on or it's off, but it's much more of a rheostat. You slowly turn that stuff up. You take some things that are not essential. In fact, I always take the things that you hate doing. Let's see if we can have someone else do that. Whether it's making the schedules, whether it's checking the numbers, whether it's looking at the red tags, whether all those things. Let's figure out what you don't like to do, and see if we can find some people in your organization currently, or add a person maybe if you need to take some of that off you. And then what I want to try and do with people is take the things you love to do. So if it's dealing with customers, if it's designing jobs, if it's walking jobs, all those things, let's do more of that. Because if you're really good at it, you're going to enjoy it more and you're going to be better at it. And the person that
Mm.
enjoys doing the numbers, for instance, is going to be better at looking at that probably once they figure out what they're looking at. So that's where you start to achieve some more of that balance, and you don't mind it as much. What I really hate is when you're like, I love working on designs. I've designed houses for years, and I'll do it in my spare time for people because I love to do it, not because I have to. So it's fun. It's a hobby, effectively.
Mhm.
But I need to make sure I understand that it's a hobby and that it's not my job. There are other parts of my job I need to do, and there's parts of my job, yes, that I'm not as fond of, and parts that I love. But that's where you decide those things so that you can start talking about how you can pull some of them off you. And again, like for you, take the stuff off that
Mm.
don't take the travel part off. That's part of what you like to do. Mel, maybe take the travel off to Kansas or wherever you weren't enjoying the last time you were there. I think you said, and
No,
every time you go to Florida, though, you go to Florida.
yeah. I For the Kansas people watching this, I love Kansas. Uh, um,
It's just not quite as exciting, but
uh,
the Kansas got some great stuff.
do you know what was hard for me? I mean, I did a rip the plaster off. I did a rip the band-aid off it because it was like, hang on a minute, at 10 years, I've put this on hold of not being able to travel. 10 years. I've got more people working for me. Why do I feel like I'm working for everybody else? It
Right.
started to get to resentment, and I started to not like my own business.
Hmm.
And I realized if I go on any longer, I'm just going to go, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. And then you're not just going to bring you down, you're going to bring your
Yeah.
entire organization and all of your clients down.
Yeah.
So that's, the weight of the crown is heavy. Leadership is hard, it's very lonely. However, it can be very rewarding. But having no one around you that's willing to challenge you and go, why are we doing things this way, causes those issues. Because
Mhm.
usually in your own organization, again, you and I have known each other. You're a very strong personality. You have very strong views, and so someone to challenge you in your own organization is going to be tough.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes having someone outside your organization that's willing to ask that why question, or what's causing you to do that question, to at least force you to think a little bit, can help you get some perspective on some things. And also so that you can see, oh, other people are going through the same thing.
Mm.
A lot of business owners, when I talk to them, especially the first time, and we talk about a few things, and I go, oh yeah, that's the same story I've heard from this guy and this guy and this person and this woman. They go, really? Yeah, you're not alone. We're all dealing with this, and for some reason we
Mm.
all feel like we're not. We all feel like, oh, I'm probably the only one that's
Well, yeah,
miserable.
I thought, yeah, I thought I must be, there's something wrong with me because I don't see anybody else having this problem. Um,
Right.
and so it must be like I'm a shit leader or whatever.
Well, especially
Um,
with social media, because everybody's happy on social media and everybody's, oh, we're so great. And look at all the wonderful things our company's doing because it's all real.
everybody, there's never a bad day on social media if you're in business. It's always record growth year on year, week on week, day on day. Um, but you know, I did go through that point of going, so this is me. What's wrong with me? And then somebody told me, Dean, you need to think about this differently. You've you've been used to working as a lone wolf.
Hmm.
You've used to, eat what you kill, being because I was a freelancer for a long time or a contractor.
Right.
So
Right.
I was used to basically just doing this, it was me doing my thing and I'll just get on with it. And the mistake I made was when I decided I was going to grow this business, I didn't
Hmm.
think about it as like, I'm growing the business. I thought about it as I need help.
Hmm.
And so I
Right.
did hire brilliant people, but I hired people to help me. I didn't hire people to fill key roles in the business. It was like,
Right.
oh, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And it was the first hire I did was just somebody who would just help me.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
just
Just to
pass stuff and say, sort that out.
have an extra set of hands, somebody
Yeah.
that can, just take over a few answers on email or whatever. And
And if you stay quite small, that works. But if you start
sure.
to get 5 people, 10 people, 15, 20, 50 people in the mix, it gets bedlam.
Well, and at some point you have to develop that second in command type person, which is the next level of things. After you start realizing you need to let go of some things, you also need to realize, okay, if I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, who's in charge? Because you can't have everybody in charge. You need to
Mhm.
have one person that you can tell everybody, okay, if you have a question, you go to her. She's the one that's going to answer the question. And when you get back, and you're going to have that conversation with her, okay, what decisions did you make and why? And preferably a limit on some of them where you say, okay, if it's up to, if it's a $10,000 deal, or as they get into higher and higher levels, hopefully you can give them higher and higher authority on things like that.
Yeah.
But it just gives them kind of a benchmark to know, okay, should I make this decision or should I call Dean? This feels like, okay, so he told me $10,000. What's the impact of this? It's probably about 10,500, but I think it's close enough. And you have to make it safe as the leader so that when you get back you don't smack them and say, oh, that was stupid, why would you make a decision like that? You need to go through and say, okay, so you made that decision that we didn't want that customer anymore. Oh, all right, tell me, explain the logic, how did we get there? Well, I did this,
Yeah.
this, and this, and this. Okay, I don't know that I would have made the same decision necessarily, but I allowed you to make this decision. I respect you for making that decision. So in the future, let's look at it this way, because this is what I would have wanted to see. And you have a discussion to where they may prove to you that what they did was really right, even though you thought they weren't.
Mhm.
But it's not. It's a safe discussion versus a chastising discussion, where you make them feel stupid, smaller, whatever, lesser
Mhm.
than you. And that's where a lot of people get in trouble, because that takes time and patience. That takes, you actually have to come back and realize that there's questions that need to be asked here, not the assumptions that you have. And everyone thinks they know exactly why someone did something.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks they know exactly why a decision was made, but there's other factors sometimes, and being sure to be open to those is a key to actually getting that person to grow into that role to where they feel safe doing it. You want to teach someone how to think, not what to think. And too
Mhm.
often, especially in today's education system, which is a whole different issue, we teach people what to think. We teach them to memorize. You do this when this happens. You do this when this happens. Well, most of the time, it's not quite that easy. There's a few other factors involved, a few other variables that need to be considered. So what we really want, especially in our higher level or mid level, even managers and those, everybody above that frontline worker, effectively, we want them to learn how to think, and we want the process of how you, as the leader, this is how I think, and this is why I think these things. And so going through those conversations with people is a whole delegation discussion. That's a 2-day seminar that I do. So,
Yeah. I did the Band-Aid rip-off, which obviously caused quite a lot of chaos because I just went, no, we're not doing this. And then basically made a mess and then got some help to tidy it up. But in that in that chaotic period, I didn't know. I didn't know. Some of it was like, I didn't know it was chaotic. I thought this is how business is. You're constantly dealing with different
Right.
problems. And so I normalized a lot of the stuff that, 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined being on the road, doing a road trip through basically Missouri. Where did I go? Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for 2 weeks on
Mm.
the road. I couldn't imagine that. On top of, in January, I was there out for 3 weeks. So I'd been out of the office so far, and it's what, the end of April, for 3 to 6 weeks.
Mhm.
That
And
could
nothing
never
fell
have
apart,
happened.
right?
Nothing. There was a few little bits and bobs, but
Sure.
nothing. But you know, I'm on a call if it's an major emergency, but I didn't have any.
Right. And that's the what normally happens if you truly have people that are good people that have been trained and know what to expect. Now, you can't just stick anybody in there and think that's going to instantly happen. There's a process you go through. Again, you
Mhm,
have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to help them learn or help them to think the way you want them to think and look at problems the way you want them to look at problems. So you can't just throw anybody in there, hire them, and say, okay, we're done. It's
now,
time.
one mistake I think, looking backwards, in those first few years, as we grew, there was a couple of things happened. What one we carried a lot of headcount we didn't need, um, because basically I was the bottleneck for the whole business, so people couldn't finish things. So we had at one point nearly 60 people.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, we're now like 30, but where our revenue's more. Well, obviously AI has brought a lot of efficiencies, but we were 60 people. We're now 30 people doing more revenue, serving more clients with half the headcount. Now I know it's not nice, people losing their jobs, but that was money that was going to basically eh, ineffective operations. So that was a
Right,
thing I had to wrestle with. How much, not, it sounds horrible saying money wasted, but you know what I mean.
right. It's inefficient. It's inefficient
Yeah.
use of that money. What else could you use that money for? Because I would argue that I have met several of your team members, but not all of them, and I didn't meet them before. But I would bet the team is happier now. Morale is probably
Yeah.
higher because they feel like they're contributing. They feel like they're part of something. They feel like, I mean, the buzzword that every person I talk to that's in an ownership position, I want them to think like me. I want them to think like an owner. Well, how can they think like an owner if you're putting a leash on them all the time?
Yeah.
You have to allow them to feel like an owner before they can actually think like an owner. And that it doesn't mean you have to necessarily give them a part ownership of the business, but you
Mhm,
have to give them ownership of the thoughts and some of the decisions and some of that part. So that's where the ownership you really want is.
mhm.
And sadly, we still get the dopamine hit ourselves from fixing the problem. So we tend to jump
The
right in there
savior.
because we love, I mean, again, throw the cape on. Oh, I'm here. I can save the day. Well, that's great, except you create a whole bunch of dependents that are going to just
Mhm,
wait for you to save the day every time and are not going to feel real motivated that they are, again, part of the answer, part of the solution. They don't feel like they can contribute a lot of times.
mhm.
So you're if you are the person that has to save everything every time, what sometimes is going to be created is resentment, like you're talking about. You were talking about resenting your own job. You're going to have resentment from your people because
Yeah.
they're going to feel like, oh, I didn't, how was your day today? Oh, it's fine. I had this issue. Dean took care of it. Oh well. There was none of that. They don't get that dopamine hit from taking care of it themselves, and they
Yeah.
need that as well. Someone will recruit them away eventually and allow them to make those
Well, I,
decisions,
I was
and
just
you'll
going to
lose
say,
people.
I did. There's some people I go, I lost some people, not because, not no fallouts or anything like that, but there was some people
Right.
that we lost that you think, with hindsight, they were brilliant, and I understand why they left actually now. At the time, I was like, seriously, like, but then I look back now and go, yeah, I can understand it.
Yeah, we lose people so quickly in a lot of cases, and then it takes so long in others. So a lot of times we'll lose them quickly because we don't do a great job of onboarding. Again, that's a whole nother conversation of how you should onboard people and training schedules and getting people to feel. I mean, hell, just getting them to feel welcome on day one is an accomplishment sometimes that most companies don't do. And then you have the long ones that stick around because they're sharp and they could pick those things up even if you do have a bad onboarding system. But then if they're never given any ability to feel like they're progressing, which is what you're doing, you're holding them back, then it doesn't matter what you pay them in some cases, because especially if they tend to be newer to the workforce and they have ambition, it's money is a motivator, but it's not the only one. They want
Yeah.
to learn, they want to see how to do things. They're going to run their own company one day. And I have owners that tell me, "Oh, I'd never hire somebody that told me they're going to own their own company one day." Why? These
Mhm.
people are ambitious. They want to make some stuff happen. So make it such an amazing place to work that they don't want to go somewhere else
Mhm.
because they see how cool it is to work for you and how much you teach them and how much you allow them to grow.
It's funny, because one of the reasons I started my business after working, I was kind of a contractor, but kind of an employee at the same time, if you know what I mean.
I've
Um,
been there.
One of the reasons I stopped doing that was because despite me having responsibilities in the organization and goals and tasks that I really enjoyed, circumstances in the organization, CEO changed. And in that changeover, there was a total lack of decision making. And I reached the point where I was like, I can't do my job anymore.
Right.
And I'm not sitting around here on my hands just taking the money. I'm leaving. And
Right.
I remember that. I remember getting to that point of going, that it's only a matter of time before, because I can't get anything done, they're going to go, why do we need Dean? So I'm like,
Mhm.
why don't I go and find something else before that happens? Before they go, well, you can't do that anymore, Dean, because of that's in review and that's in review and that's in review and that's not going to get done. So I can't finish anything, basically. I can't complete any work. And at some point, they're going to come back to me and go, why is all this a mess? And that's your fault. So I was like, I'm done.
It happens all the time. All the time. Um, it, as I talk to teams, when I work with a company and ask them what they're working on and those things, it becomes a constant theme. Well, I'm waiting on this. So then I go talk to the owner, and then he shows me his to-do list that's written on a legal pad that's 3 pages long. And I mean, there's three things marked off on it at the end of the day. Like this is too much. You can't do this way. There has to be some other people that can help you with some of these things. So we start talking through things, and what I like to do is get to know the company and the not just the owner or the leader, manager, whatever. I want to know several, if not all of the rest of their people, because then as things pop up, I can go, hey, can't can't Jennifer do that? Can't Steve do that? Isn't there
Mhm.
any way that Dean could do that? Because you told me they were really good and they're actually that's their department. Why are you doing that? And there's there's a few moments that will come up for that person where they're like, I don't know. The other famous phrase I get all the time, it's just easier to do it myself because then I know it's done.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why you have a to-do list that's 3 pages long that doesn't get done. So yes, it's easier to do, and yes, it will be done right the first time. However, you're not you're not going to be able to grow. There's just no way. And if what you truly want is to either grow the company or get more freedom back, either one, you're going to have to do something different. And nothing is going to change until you decide to change it. So you have to decide what you want.
So, given that you do this and help companies and business owners make this change, how did you get into doing this? What's the backstory that got you to here to doing this?
I fell into it by accident, I
Not
guess.
another golf cart story, is it?
Oh no, not that kind of fall. No, not that one. I've been in the construction business for over 3 decades now. I started doing building maintenance and those things for Continental Airlines when I was a
Wow.
mid teenager. So unclogging toilets and changing light bulbs, that was my main. They figured out real quick that at my 6'6" height, changing light bulbs is one of my strengths. And then unclogging toilets, nobody else wanted. So I was, but at the time, the nice thing was I learned a lot about air conditioning. I learned a lot about framing. I learned a lot about plumbing, and various other things at the time, so that set the foundation for what would come later. So as I got into building homes and then selling homes and managing divisions and all those things, what I realized, I thought that I loved building homes, but what I really loved was building people and
Mm,
building companies and groups and teams. And it really was made plain to me as I was a manager at a big home builder. And what I carried around in my pocket, I had a little piece of paper that had all the people's names on it that had been promoted under my watch, that I had either hired or had developed or whatever and had gotten promoted. And that list got longer and longer. And I had more pride in that than I did in the P&L every single month. And so eventually I went off on my own, started building with my own company, and I did exactly what I watch a lot of my clients do. I completely cooked myself. I did the accounting, I did the design, I did the building, I did the cleanup. I'm in there with a broom, of course. I'm shoveling mud. I'm doing every single part of it because no, I can't hire somebody because I need to make all the money on this. Or I wouldn't ask somebody else to do something I wouldn't do. Another phrase I get all the
it's
time.
like you're describing my world here.
Uh-huh, exactly. And so I completely cooked myself, and I ended up moving to Colorado because I knew my kids were young at the time. I knew something needed to change, and I didn't know how else to change it. So I shut my business down and took about 6 months off, and took my kids to school, and got very bored very quickly, actually. But it was an interesting time because it was very introspective for me. And I spent a lot of time. I was on the side of a mountain, just looking out into a stream with deer running around and things, and it let me get real clear on some things. And what also happened at the same time was several of those people off of that list I was telling you about started
Mhm.
calling me, and they now had building companies of their own and asking me for advice. And so I'd give them the advice. I'd, oh yeah, I'd do this or I'd do that. And one of them one day finally said, you get paid to do this, right? I said, I don't know what you're talking. What do you mean? He said, it's called consulting. I'm like, huh, never thought about that. And she became my first client, actually.
Wow.
And from there, I started working with various clients throughout the country. And for a little while, just like you, I ended up with a big corporation as their vice president of operations for a little while, and then have gotten back to now the consulting portion of it. So again, it wasn't something I purposely set out to do. Is people just kept asking me for help, and I love to help people, and I love to help people see where they need to go and what they need to do. So that again, it's really the building the people that is so much fun for me.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how rewarding it is seeing people progress. Like
Mm,
I can remember some of the team that came and they started, and some of them started like when they were like 21.
mhm.
And I don't think you've met Dave on the team, but Dave started when he was 20. He's 32 now with three kids.
Mhm.
He's our managing
It's
director. He's the managing director
yep.
here in the UK.
It's
But
such a cool process to watch.
yeah, but he started out as an apprentice. So I don't really have the apprentices in the US, but like,
Hmm.
you know, cheap money to learn the role, basically.
Exactly, and an intern we would call them here, probably an
Yeah.
internship
So,
almost. But
similar. It's similar. Similar.
yeah, I
But
had a guy.
go on, fire away.
I had one that sticks out in my mind that when he was actually, I didn't know he was 19 at the time, but I was buying a new TV for a model home at Best Buy, a big box store with electronics. And I walked in, and this kid sold me a TV. He was amazing. I loved how he did everything, and it was natural. He had not been trained, he just was a natural salesperson. So I offered him a job and ended up hiring him as a salesperson. Um, he has his own company now. I think he's doing flooring actually now. But again, I met his wife before they got married. I met his kids when they were born, and that's 30 years ago now. So just like you said, the rewarding part of watching that process, if you'll invest in people, is so fulfilling for
Mm.
you as a person.
Yeah. Um, so Burke, just for anybody watching, how do you engage with companies? Because obviously you're passionate about this. You're passionate about helping them, both the business owner and the people who have to work with the business owner who's in this kind of rut that I was in. Um,
Right.
how do you work with them?
Generally, I always want to talk first before we ever get to the point of, or before I would ever commit to saying I'm going to work with a company or not. It's much more of a conversation first with that person, usually a phone call or depending, maybe in person, about what do they want, what are they after, what are they trying to
Mhm.
accomplish, because if they hesitate on a lot of stuff, usually they're not a good fit. I mean, I'll help them try and straighten through some of it, but most of them, the pain has to be bad enough that they're like, I've got, just like when I cracked, and it sounds like you went through some of the same, where they're like, no, I have to change something because it's not easy. It's really
Mm.
hard to go through the beginning of this process. And if they're not ready for it, then when that first 2 or 3 weeks when nothing seems to change, it's not going to feel right. And they're going, oh, this is terrible. They're just going to give up, just like any other self help type of a thing. So usually they'll contact me through either email, LinkedIn, give me a phone call. A lot of my clients are referrals actually. And we'll set up a phone call and just talk for 30, 40 minutes. And I want to get to know them, who they are, what they're about, how they got started, why they do what they do. What things that they think the business should be. And the interesting thing is most of them tell me everything's great when I first talk to them. Oh, I've got great people. Oh, amazing people. Yeah, no, all of them are perfect tens. Okay, good to know. Good to know. So
We
then why
just
are
have
we
a few
talking?
tiny little things to work on. Tiny
Exactly.
things
There's
to
just this little area. No, no, no. Don't look over there. Not over there. Just this little thing over here. So once we get through that, and then they decide that they are ready, then we do a commitment and we start working. And that looks like a lot of conversations. I tend to be available probably too many hours. I need to listen to my own preaching sometimes, probably, because I want to be there and I want to help them, especially at the beginning as we get
Mm.
things set up. And then it becomes more of a maintenance as we work through. After 6 to 8 months, usually it's just more of a conversation. Okay, you said you were going to work on this. Did you work on it? Where are we at with that? I had a conversation with a client actually right before we got on here, where she's struggling with one of her team members, and what our entire conversation was about is, okay, how are you going to approach this conversation? We both know what needs to be said, but how are you going to approach it? What are the words you're going to use? Where are you going to do it? All those, because she was going to walk out right into the middle of the warehouse and just tear this guy a new one. And I was like, what's the
I
outcome you're looking for?
think
Because
that's
I don't think
illegal
that's
here.
going to get it for you. So it's taking some of the emotion out in those things. So it's an evolving relationship, which is the nice part for me. The beginning is a lot of just it's a lot of extracting information. It's a lot of
Yeah,
who are these people, where do they do, what do you think of all of them, what are your goals in the business, and then what's the path to get there? Because too many people set goals but don't set a path. They just say, okay, I want to double in 6 months.
which is basically
Okay,
a pipe dream. They're just
exactly.
dreaming.
Exactly. It's a dream. It's not a plan for sure.
So, Burke, I've really enjoyed this actually, and so's 58 other people. Burke, what's the best way people get in touch with you?
The best way is probably to send me an email. It's Burke, Burk, at rainmakerbuilders.com. RAINK, let's see, RAINMAKERS.com, or my cell phone's easy. If you want to text me, that's usually better because I spend a lot of time on the phone with clients and things like that. My cell phone's 832-687-0329. And worst case, you can always go through LinkedIn as well. You can find me Burke Moreland on LinkedIn. So I've had some
Or
help with that recently. So
awesome. Burke, I think we should do some more stuff like this because this is quite good. I enjoyed it. It's like therapy for me, admitting all my mistakes live on YouTube. Um, it's talking therapy basically.
Mhm.
But
Well,
you
and that's
know,
funny enough what I tend to do a lot. My mother was a family therapist, so I guess I got that part of her in there. I tend to do a lot of borderline therapy because, like the lady earlier I was talking to, it's like, whoa, 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 calm down. Wait, what's driving this emotion in you right now? Why are we so wound up? Let's calm down a little bit so we can figure out what we really want to have happen.
but it is kind of true, isn't it? Like when you come out of it and you see, oh my God, that was a lot of this stuff was happening because I wasn't taking charge of
Right.
making it different. I wasn't, I built, no, I hadn't built. The business I had was the business I allowed to develop. It
Exactly.
wasn't intentional.
Mhm.
And now I look backwards and go, where would I have been if I'd have realized that
Right.
5 years earlier? Oh
Right.
my God, how much money would have been in the bank? How much money would have not been wasted? How much time?
How
It's
much enjoyment
insane.
did you lose? I mean,
Mhm.
again, that's what I tend to focus on is that enjoyment part. The money's great, yes. The growth of the business is wonderful, but the enjoyment of life, we only get one shot at this.
Yeah.
So to lose all that time when I get it when you have to, but when you don't have to,
Mhm.
that's such a hard one for me to watch
Mhm.
with people and doing it as you said unconsciously versus consciously. Culture in a company and the plan of a company is developed either way. It's either unconscious or conscious. Do you control it? Do you develop it on purpose, or do you allow it to happen? And usually, the allowing it to happen path is not a good one. It
Mhm.
makes it a little rough.
100%. So, Burke, we're all wrapped up. Um, uh, Brantley Ray said, great show. So maybe we'll have to do this again.
Thank you,
Um,
Brantley. I know who Brantley is. I had lunch with him a couple weeks ago. He's a great guy. And
so
thank you, Dean, for taking the time to do this. I mean, it makes it so much easier than just talking to a camera with nobody responding. This was a great experience. Had a lot of fun.
I don't know. I was a brick wall for a long time. Awesome. Thank you, Burke, for having me on. I'd love to do it again. And
Anytime.
yeah, guys, if you resonate with any of my situation, obviously maybe not the kind of what I do, but you're in the construction world and you go, actually, I want to kind of figure out, is it me? What am I in the way here? I highly recommend you have a chat with Burke. Again, he'll see if he can help you. If he can, he can. If he can't, he can't, and he'll tell you straight.
Absolutely.
So yeah, awesome. Thank you again for joining.